Now that's a lot of cones. I'm sure to probably 95% of novices, the first time they step foot on an autocross course, it looks less like a track they're going to be driving on and more like the scene of a horrifying construction accident that hasn't been fully cleaned up yet. Why are some laying down? Why are some pointing at each other? Why are people out with buckets of sidewalk chalk drawing? What do all of the different cone positions mean? And why are there just so many of them? Today on Cars and Cones, we're going to take a look at the basics that make up an autocross course. Not every course will have every element every time. While some elements are basically a guarantee on any given course just due to the nature of how autocross events are run, there's no guarantee on which elements any given course designer will choose. As you can see on my run here, how you choose to use these basic elements can greatly change different sections of a course. And while many of these elements may seem self-explanatory, there are some that are slightly more nuanced than others. We'll take a look at these elements, starting with one of the more basic ones, directional cones. A directional, or pointer cone as it's sometimes called, refers to the cone seen here lying on its side. The purpose of these cones is to indicate which side of another cone or obstacle a driver is supposed to navigate around while on course. Our example here says that we're to go left around this set of cones. Directional cones are used to indicate things like which direction you're supposed to turn at the start of a course, which direction you're going if there's a crossover element in the course, or to indicate things like where you're supposed to start in a slalom or enter a gate at. That leads us to our next element, the gate. In autocross, a gate refers to two cones set up that you're supposed to drive between. These could be set up at the beginning or end of a different section, maybe during a faster section to try to keep speeds in check, or at the entrance or exit of a corner to try to position cars to go a certain angle around things. Effectively, gates are an element of car placement control, both as a driver being able to navigate through narrow areas, and also as a course designer to direct the cars where you need them to be going. That leads to our next element, the offset. As seen here, an offset is just a series of gates offset from each other, hence the name. And while they can look a bit intimidating head-on, an offset is effectively nothing more than just a basic slalom with a couple extra cones to limit how far you can go off the line. One of the most common elements you'll see on an autocross course is the slalom. Also used in other sports such as skiing, a slalom is a series of cones set up in a straight line for you to weave between. Seen both with the directional cone and sometimes in a choose-your-own-direction style adventure, the idea of a slalom is to maintain a line as tight through the cones as possible while maintaining as high a speed as possible. Slaloms are one of the elements where you will commonly see a much more advanced technique known as backsiding being employed. Without getting too far out of the reach of a beginner-level video, backsiding is effectively bringing the rear of the car close to the cone that you're passing by instead of the front of the car when you're turning past that cone. The next element on our list is known as the lane change. Similar to an offset or a slalom, a lane change on first glance appears to be nothing more than just another set of cones to weave between. Unlike with an offset, where each gate's made up of a row of two cones, lane changes can be 3, 4, maybe even 5 rows of cones at a time. This means that, unlike with an offset, where you have room after you go through the gate to correct if you made an error entering it, If you make an error entering a lane change, you might end up taking out multiple cones and incurring the penalties of taking out all of those cones. This is one of those cases where, even though something looks simple, it can actually be one of the more difficult elements for many people on course. While we're on the topic of elements that many find difficult, up next we have the Chicago box. While on the surface, a Chicago box looks like a very strange layout. In essence, it's nothing more than a slalom with a controlled entrance and exit. While the size of the box can vary, and the spacing between the middle cone and the end cones can be changed to determine if it's a faster entrance or exit, at the end of the day, it is still just a slalom that you drive in through one side of the box and out through the other. Where things get difficult are for bigger, heavier vehicles, vehicles that may not have the greatest turning radius, or vehicles that are prone to power on or power off oversteer. The tight confines of a Chicago box can lead to some very difficult choices as to how to approach your line going in and then exiting the box. Our next element is a bit less complicated, but no less important. The element known as a sweeper is a long, constant radius turn where the idea is to maintain as high a speed as possible without pushing yourself too far off the line of the turn. Our next element is known as a pivot cone. As shown here, a pivot cone is a singular cone with a double cone gate set up before it. The double cone means that you drive through that gate twice on one run. Unlike with most autocross elements, it's usually left up to the driver to choose which direction they wish to go around the pivot cone before heading back towards the rest of the course. This allows the driver to choose how to set themselves up best for the next element they're approaching on a given course. Our next element is known as the start box. As the name implies, it's where you start your run. These are set up in many different ways, from full boxes like the one shown here, to just a simple guy with a flag and a cone beside them to line up the wheels for the car, and then a gate a little further up for where the timing light setup is actually set to start the run. Along with the start box, there's also something called the stop box. The layout and design of a stop box can vary depending on the course and the course designer, but the purpose of it is for the vehicle that just finished its run on course to come to a full stop before exiting in the indicated direction. And I do want to put emphasis on full stop. Autocross relies heavily on course workers to help things run smoothly, and by coming to a full stop, not only does it allow you a moment to get back out of the I'm going fast race car driver mentality, but it also allows the course workers a moment to go reset any pylons you may have knocked down and to get the next person ready for their run. It's always important to remember, it's only fun when everyone gets to go home and talk about it later. While on course, you may notice the chalk markings around all the pylons set up wherever your autocross group runs. These boxes to indicate a standing cone, and the lines to indicate the directional cones, help determine not only where the cones go in the event that they're knocked down, but also any penalties incurred. A penalty happens when a cone is knocked down from its box or knocked completely out of its box. If you hit a cone and it lands upright still inside of its marked box, that does not count as a penalty and does not show as a cone hit on that run. It may seem a bit far-fetched, but I've personally seen it done, and it's not as uncommon as one might be led to believe it is. While on the topic of penalties, the other penalty you'll probably see at some point is what's known as an off-course. While most of the time hitting a cone counts as a 2-second time penalty, going off course automatically counts as a DNF for that entire run. This is why some people believe in the idea that if you're going to go off course and you have any ability at all to save it, hit the cones. Even though you take out the cones, because you didn't go off course, you only get the cone time penalty instead of completely losing the run. And on a really good run, that may still put you in contention for a podium finish versus losing one of the few timed runs you get. And with that, I think this is a pretty good place to wrap up for now. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you again on the next one.